Welcome to The Geek in Review, the podcast focused on innovative and creative ideas in the legal industry. I'm Marlene Gaybauer.
And I'm Greg Lambert.
So happy Dia de Muertos, Greg.
Yeah.
It's a big deal here in Houston.
It is. I'm still stunned it's November, but I said that about this time last year. So, I guess it's an annual event.
I'm stunned it's still 80 degrees.
That I'm not surprised at. It's either 80 degrees or it's snowing, one or the other.
One or the other.
So what you got going on?
Well, I got some family coming down to visit. It's their first time visiting Texas, so they're in the Austin area right now, and we're gonna get together and spend some time together. So I'm eager to hear about their adventure.
Yeah, well, tell them not all of Texas is as weird as Austin. So
That's right. That's right. Only Austin has that.
Yeah, and the food's better in Houston, by the way. So
of course it is.
Just so they know. So
everything's better in Houston.
Yeah, I got some family coming down. We're going to go up to Lake Livingston and
Nice.
Spend the weekend. So it's good. It's the first time that they've been down in a while, so it's going to be good to catch up with them.
Great. Sounds good. Well, we'd like to welcome Tom Martin, founder of LawDroid. Tom, in addition to being the founder of LawDroid, Tom does many, many things.
Yeah, he's quite the Renaissance man.
He is. He's a professor, a philosopher, a coder, lawyer, and a highly successful author. So, Tom, welcome to the Geek in Review.
Hey, Marlene. Hey, Greg. I'm so excited to be here and, talk about a number of things going on in the AI legal world.
Yeah, I think there's a few things going on from what I could tell. So Tom, you've been around the industry for quite a while now, but do you mind just kind of sharing your story about the founding of LawDroid and your journey in the legal tech industry?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it short. So I got started with LawDroid about 8 years ago, but I've been a practicing lawyer for just over 25 years. I've been dabbling in tech the whole time, and LawDroid was just one way to kind of crystallize what I was working on. And I was making these tools for myself, so I thought I'll help other lawyers that are in the same boat as I am. Solo, small firm work is what I did and still do. A lot of lawyers are benefiting from it, So that's what I do.
I'm curious, LawDroid, what's the story behind the name?
It's kind of obvious, right? Just trying to put together like
that you're a Star Wars nerd. Is that
yeah,
is that what
automation and legal, but yeah, there was definitely that influence. I love the idea of like a little R2 unit that can help with the law.
So, Tom, what do you think are some of the key advantages of using generative AI assistants for lawyers and for legal professionals?
Look, the great thing about generative AI is that, it's based on large language models. It is optimized for language. So are we as lawyers. Like that's what we deal with day in, day out. It's about tweaking the words to make them get what we want for our clients. And so this thing is expert at that and takes a lot of the burden off our shoulders. Everything from something as simple as summarizing documents to finding references within a document to even helping us to draft stuff. So I don't think we could have asked for more, although there is a lot more to do in this area.
I say there is some improvement that we were aware of.
Yeah, there's definitely room for improvement, but I think what I found interesting is just human nature, like how quickly the goalposts move. This stuff would be miraculous like 3 years ago, and now we've kind of pushed it out, and now it's just commonplace. Actually, John McCarthy, who was one of the godfathers of AI, said that as soon as it starts working, it's not AI anymore. But yeah, there's a lot of room for improvement, but that's also a challenge.
Right. I think we hit this, and it was so amazing. and that I think people were a little dazzled. And then we had to take some time to sort of take a deeper dive and look at it. And, okay, we're finding some things. There's, hallucinations, and, sometimes it's slow and, but compared to where we were before, kind of amazing. And we recognize that there needs to be improvements, and you're seeing those improvements being made in the industry.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of ways to cut against it. If you're using the consumer-facing version of ChatGPT, you're definitely going to have some hallucinations. But now they have that web search, which, by the way, is ranking your podcast right up there as one of the top podcasts.
Nice.
As it should.
Yeah. But that cuts against hallucinations, right? Because it's pulling from factual information. And then with legal AI, applications are built on top of the technology, but have their own source of trusted information. So it gets even better. So there's definitely ways of making the system much more truthful, accurate, and reliable.
So, I know one of the things that you've been working on is the no-code agentic workflow transformation. So can you talk to us a little bit about what you're doing with that, and where you think are the ways that legal professionals that can help them manage their tasks and their processes? And I would say, is this the word of the year seems to be workflow automation, or phrase, I guess. Is that, are we talking workflow automation, or is this something else?
Something else a little bit different. Workflow automation is so 2020, right? I think
but not according to a lot of vendors out there.
What I think the catchphrase for this year for all vendors is agents, and agentic workflows. And actually, I don't want to be one of those guys who's we've been working on this for years, but we have for the past 8 years. And the bots or agents that we've had, the whole purpose of the ones that we built are that they can take actions independently 24/7, 365. So you don't have to be constantly one-to-one involved with it synchronously, right? ChatGPT, Copilots, you have to be there one-to-one, ask for something, get a response, ask for something, get a response. Agents free you from that. And that's what's so promising about them for all business, but lawyers too. For example, on our platform, you can, in 5 minutes, spin up an AI receptionist that is doing the job 24/7, 365, answering phone calls, taking messages, routing calls, with a pleasant voice and saying exactly the script that you want. Not too shabby. That takes a lot of overhead and burden off, and also makes all that information at your fingertips. Whereas if it's somebody speaking to somebody, you may not have notes about it or know exactly what happened.
And let's face it, attorneys are notorious for not answering the phones and being responsive. So anything you can do to help with that has got to be a plus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the number one bar complaint is lack of communication for lawyers.
I'm switching topics a little bit here. Well, a lot of bit here. But I am very curious to get your opinion on this, as kind of a thought leader in this space. So do you see generative AI and no-code platforms playing a role in increasing access to justice for undeserved communities? Or is it going to be, the opposite? Is it going to have the opposite type of effect? Because you're hearing a lot of discussion, both sort of pro and con, that okay, if this is something that's going to be made and it's not going to give them as high level an experience, and then others are saying this is a situation where nobody's getting this type of help, and this is a way to be able to do it within a cost parameters.
Bias, right? I'm definitely pro using generative AI to help. I'm pro anyway of trying to help, right? And I think this is particularly suited to it. And I know for a fact that it's helping because we've worked with legal aid organizations to incorporate this technology to reach out and provide people the help that they need immediately. We've done it with legal aid in North Carolina. Their Leah assistant has helped tens of thousands of people get information, including just after Hurricane Helene. You know, they don't have the time to be reading through hundreds of pages of greatly sourced web pages of information. They just want the answer, and this thing gives them the answer. They could take action on it. We're doing a similar project with the State Court of Alaska and also the State Bar of Arizona and others. So there's a ton of interest. It does the job. And I think that's one of the killer applications of generative AI.
I'm curious on the hurricane relief. What's some of kind of the examples that people are getting results that they wouldn't necessarily get without these tools?
Well, I think what's happening is that they're getting direct access to that information about where to get the forms that they need, where to get the advice that they need. So like if they want to get those phone numbers or forms or all of that, it's aggregated into one synthesized response. So they get that as needed, because everyone has like different questions, different concerns. And so the beauty of Gen AI is that it could tailor the response to that particular person. Whereas if you use a web page, you have to find it, you got to track it down, or you're choosing one option and then maybe another option, and maybe they're in different places, so they're not easy to find.
And I'm being dangerous here because I'm coming with questions off the top of my head, but it would seem like also like that some of the future, if not current examples of how this could help is that with it being the large language models, there's multiple languages actually that, queries could come in. So I'm, it may not be specific to this, but I think that's something that these types of tools could really help with it. It's not just, does someone speak English and can get the information back in English, but it seems like with these, you have some flexibility.
Absolutely. Like with Leah in North Carolina, somebody asks it a question in Spanish. It understands the context. This person needs a response in Spanish. It responds to them in Spanish. Everything in the database, like all the trusted information that they've provided us to train the AI, is in English, obviously. But immediately on the fly, it gets translated into the language that the user is communicating in. So pretty amazing.
Pretty impressive. So let's get back to LawDroid. And I know there's a lot of customability and flexibility that you've built in to the system. Generically, can you talk about, this flexibility to meet specific needs, even across different legal practices?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot to talk about. We have two products. We have Copilot, which is an AI legal assistant, just like a bunch of others out there. But we also have LawDroid Builder. Now that's the heavy hitter. That's the one where you can build custom agents to your needs. And actually, it's the platform that we used to build LawDroid Copilot. And so that's kind of an example for law firms of how sophisticated an application they could build based on the platform. But it fits pretty much any practice area, because when the lawyer gets involved, they can customize it to their needs. Some template agents that we have where you could just spin it up quickly is the AI receptionist that I mentioned before. A lead capture bot that you put on your website engages like in a sales conversation with people to convert them to leads. We also have a generative AI Q&A bot, which is like the one at the legal aid organizations. You just feed in the information, it can answer questions on the fly. And then lastly, the last template we have is one that can interview clients or potential clients, gather that information, and actually complete documents on the fly. So a document automation agent. You could just think of all the different applications for that. An estate planning lawyer could have it, creating first drafts of estate planning documents in Word, emailing them to the attorney. The attorney has it 80 to 90% buttoned up before they even talk to the client.
I'm
They're
curious.
kind of go ahead, Marty.
I was going to say, I'm curious, how hard is it to do the build? I mean, I know this is sort of low code, no code, but for your average attorney who may not be familiar with any of that. How easy is it for them to do it?
Well, there is some work involved. We do have like self-help videos, support. We're there for them. And that's if, they go down the do-it-yourself route. We try to make it as easy as possible with the templates. But, definitely, I understand as a lawyer myself, they may not have the time, inclination to even learn how to do that. That's why we have a second option, which is a done-for-you option, where we can build it out for them. They just answer some questions in a questionnaire. And then based on that, build it out. They get implemented very quickly and get it out there helping them.
It's kind of your sweet spot for your client base. Is it a little small firm, larger? What's kind of the spectrum of your customer base?
Yeah, I mean, to be open with you, I have two customer bases. Like there's the projects where I work with legal aid. I have a legal insurance company that's a client. And those are kind of like longer term, larger ticket item projects that we work on. On the other hand, there's the software as service where I'm working with individual law firms and lawyers to help them automate their law practice. And one hand washes the other. Like the projects kind of underwrite everything, allow us to build up over the years the software as service platform. And that's been growing, over the past couple of years. So it's really, I'm very thankful for everyone that's worked with me, because to remain bootstrapped but profitable without having to take VC investment, without having to give up control or be under someone else's timeline has been a great advantage. Because I think right now, as you're seeing, there's so much change when it comes to generative AI that to be able to like wait it out and incorporate the changes slowly as they make sense, as opposed to being under the gun, is a big advantage.
Do you have any aspirations to either, for example, move in on the corporate side or larger law firms, or is there someone that you think could take advantage of what LawDroid does that don't necessarily have LawDroid on the radar?
Unfortunately, I think LawDroid is probably not on a lot of people's radar, and that's a problem.
We need to get it on their radar.
Yeah.
I hope so, because I think in the scope of all of the options that are available right now for legal AI, I know for a fact that LawDroid is one of the most affordable and one of the most dynamic, in that you can apply it to a lot of different use cases. If you want for your law firm like an AI tool chest where you can get into this and build it out for yourself intuitively, easily, and affordably, that's LawDroid. So yeah, I welcome that interest, and I think we can really help a lot of people.
So one of the things that I deal with pretty much on a daily basis is data security and privacy requirements for different vendors, Gen AI vendors. And
never heard of that.
Yeah, no, never, never. And, I understand, like, we as an industry are struggling with that right now. We're wrestling with it, and that's a good thing, and we'll figure it out. But in the meantime, so what are the measures that LawDroid takes to ensure that data security and privacy for, users, for, law firms or legal departments and law firm clients?
It's a great question. We get asked a lot. It comes up in all the conversations that we have. And it should. Like as a lawyer myself, I understand the importance of these ethics rules and that we comply with them and that we keep the best interests of our clients at heart, because that's what we do as professionals. So that filters down into how we handle the information. So for example, all of the data that comes into our system, we don't train against it. And every vendor that we use, we have contractual, obligations from them not to train against it. We do retain the information for the convenience of the users. We have, archives of conversations they could refer back to. Sometimes they need to for compliance, to just make sure that, if somebody said, hey, they accepted the terms of service that this is not legal advice, that in fact, we have a log of that and they can refer back to it. But we also allow data management so that if they want to delete conversations after a month, they could go into the system, they could bulk delete, they could individually delete conversations. So we're very respectful of getting rid of the data if they want to get rid of it. And then, of course, for security, we have encryption, both in terms of the transmission of the data to us and then how it's kept. So we take reasonable precautions to ensure that all of this information is secure, private, and that we provide the best situation for their clients, that it's kept in a secure manner.
I'm gonna hop back to the theme I had about like how easy is it for lawyers to use this technology. As an attorney yourself, what advice would you give to lawyers who are hesitant to adopt, AI or no code solutions in their practice? Because that's always a challenge with, innovation teams and others who try and roll out these products, is to, get, the clientele at their organization to use it and to consistently use it.
All right. So my answer is kind of like a clarion call, like a call to action, because I think sometimes lawyers, they have, and I've been guilty of this in the past too, but have this sense of, I could wait it out, right? Like, it's not quite perfect for me. I'm just going to push away from the table. And because we've had like a pretty iron clad monopoly in the past, that's been more doable then. With the sandboxes, with, in California, there's multiple licenses of non-lawyers that are actually essentially practicing law with document preparation, some paralegals and others throughout the different states. That level of like ironclad monopoly is it's being eaten into. And then you have AI companies that are making all of this information easily accessible. As Greg pointed out with the web search on OpenAI right now on ChatGPT, you can find a lot of this legal information very quickly directly through it. So it's not like we have control the way we used to. They can end run us. And so, the best way, I think, to battle that is to jump into it, experiment with it, remain curious. You're only going to be able to master AI if you experiment and use AI, and the attorney that is already using it is going to be ahead of the game. So one last thing I'll mention is that if you look at the actual statistics, not just me talking about it as a vendor, which you might think, well, you're biased, Tom. But if you look at, recent numbers out of Wolters Kluwer, it's 86% of in-house counsel are using Gen AI in some way. And I believe it's 79 or 78% of law firms are using generative AI. And of course, the Clio numbers are that last year went from 19% adoption to this year 79% adoption. So this is a tidal wave of interest and adoption, and you don't want to be left behind.
How do you balance that with, I know there are times where I show attorneys, hey, look at this feature that we can do. Here's something that we can do to streamline your work. And the initial response is, oh God, it's a good thing I'm only 5 years away from retirement, because I don't think that I'm going to have a job in 5 years, which I try to like bring them off the cliff. So how do you discuss the benefit AI and then how that benefit actually enhances the role of the attorney rather than necessarily takes away from it?
It's a great question, and it's a matter of good news, bad news. I always like to deal with the bad news first. So the bad news is, yes, it is going to, there are going to be jobs lost as they're currently defined. So the types of job skills and work that we do day to day pre-AI, that's not going to remain the same. There's a lot of stuff that's going to get removed from that and then put into the lap of AI because it's just much better at doing route summarization, data extraction, all that stuff, which I know when I had colleagues of mine come out in the late 90s into the working world, they were not happy to be pouring through thousands and thousands of pages of deposition transcripts doing that kind of like discovery in the old days. So that's bad news that jobs are going to change by definition. But the good news is that AI is going to be able to help us with a lot of the work that we're doing and make it more interesting because it will be able to focus on more interesting stuff. So that's kind of the good news, bad news about it. And I think on the net, it's going to be a net positive. It'll also, by the way, by making all of this more efficient, bring down the costs of representation so we could actually represent more, and it could widen the market and the number of customers that can access it and afford us.
Let's talk about the big event that you hold every year, the annual Legal Technology Awards, and I think last one was here in Texas, in Austin. Yeah. Talk about the event, kind of why you created it, and why it's important to recognize some of the leadership and accomplishments for the legal tech creators.
Yeah, it's been a work of love and heart, I think, because the people that come to it, the people that we recognize, they're really about giving back to the community, and it's also about doing well, but doing good. And so it was in Austin, it was at the Bar Mansion, it was an amazing event that I think really brought people together. And our mission, I co-founded this organization with Patrick Pallas and Kat Moon. We're friends, and it really came from a place of, we're in the community, we love everyone in our community, we wanted to have a great excuse to get together and just hang out and party, honestly, but also having the mission of recognizing those people, holding them up as examples so that it can create, a cycle of improvement for us and the whole industry, and thereby benefit everyone in the world, really. So it's a bit idealistic. It's very grassroots, and I'm very excited that it's going to continue next year and hopefully the year after that and the year after that.
Hopefully you have in Texas
ideas?
Again.
I was going to say, have you got it lined up for the event place yet?
Haven't completely decided, but I just, as I think you mentioned at the top, I accepted a position as an adjunct professor at Suffolk Law School, which is in Boston. Typically in the past, we've kind of been in the same place as the Clio Cloud Conference. We've had the awards and then they, have their conference. It may work out that way, but we haven't decided ultimately yet.
Carve you out some space at Suffolk for the event.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll see.
So, Tom, we've reached the end of the interview, and what we do with all of our guests is we ask everybody a crystal ball question. And basically, this is what future developments or features can we expect from LawDroid in the coming years, or what thoughts do you have on the future of AI development?
Whew, that's a stumper.
I know, pressure's on.
Just a little easy.
Yeah.
Well, I could.
The great thing is you can be wrong, because it's all just happening so quickly. It really doesn't matter whether anybody's right or wrong. It's I don't think we can figure it out at this point.
Well, the easier one I'll take first, which is how's it going to affect LawDroid? That part is easier to answer because the way that LawDroid has been built out as a platform is to take advantage of all the new improvements. So we started out with classic AI, if-then statements, if you choose A, then it's go down one route. If you choose B, then it goes down a different route. So very
decision tree.
Very fine-tuned decision tree. Yeah, exactly. But we've added layers with natural language, then with generative AI, and taken advantage of everything. So when things get even better, we'll be able to utilize that. As for how things are going to play out more broadly, I don't know. But one thing I can say is that I think it would be a terrible thing if all we did with that improvement that's going to happen and is happening right now, it'd be a terrible thing if all we did was build a faster horse. Because I think that what's happening is that we're being given an opportunity to reshape how we actually interact with the law. And I think if we do it the right way, we'll be able to reshape it so that we include everyone under the tent and not only increase access to justice, but guarantee access to justice for everyone.
Yeah. I was afraid you were going to say it'd be a shame if all we built were richer lawyers. So,
well,
you never know. You can have both. It's not a zero-sum game, I think.
I think it could be a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tom Martin from LawDroid, I want to thank you very much for coming in and talking with us today. It's been great.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Marlene. I really enjoyed being here. Thank you.
And of course, thanks to all of you, our listeners, for taking the time to listen to the Geek and Review podcast. If you enjoyed the show, share it with a colleague. We'd love to hear from you, so reach out to us on social media, on LinkedIn.
Tom, we'll put some links on the show notes, but what's the best way for people to reach out and find out more about LawDroid or to reach out to you with more questions?
Well, thanks, Greg. You could find me pretty much on all social media at LawDroid. LawDroid is my handle. But I also have a Substack where I put out articles and my own podcast at lawdroidmanifesto.com. And of course, LawDroid is at lawdroid.com. So feel free to follow up. Love to hear from you.
So if they remember anything, it's LawDroid.
Droid.
Yeah.
LawDroid. Okay. And as always, the music you hear is from Jerry David DeSica. Thanks so much, Jerry.
All right, Marlene, I'll talk to you later.